The story of Sakura. I know this is Sakura Haruno. People like her and hate her, but she is a part of Team Seven, just like the main guys, Sasuke and Naruto. She was there for them and shit too. She actually was, for a little bit, doing her supportive role and other shit because she's a female. Each team is divvied up into, male and female. But so Sakura grew up in the village. She was like friends with Ino, but not friends with Ino when it came to, fighting for Sasuke's, attention and love and all that shit. You know, that was her life, in the academy. She was always trying to compete with Ino for Sasuke's attention. And she, wasn't the worst student in class. That was Naruto, right? But she was, she was in the middle somewhere. She was the most average student in the class. And that's why she was paired with Naruto and Sasuke. See, Naruto was the worst student in class, and Sasuke was the best student. And to even out the teams, they gave her, she was with Naruto and Sasuke, you know. So she got to grow closer to Sasuke because of that. But she um was kind of useless at the beginning, but they all kind of were. But Sasuke wasn't. Sasuke had like more. He just had better experience. He came from a clan that's powerful. Naruto had power within him, but he didn't know about it. He didn't quite understand himself. None of them did at the beginning. Sakura was the same way. Sakura had long hair. She was really, really like a girl still. She didn't really understand the dangers of being a shinobi and other things. She went on the not the adventure, but the fucking job to the land of waves. Sasuke and Naruto are there, and she's just there to protect the shipbuilder. They have to give her that role, and also, she's just good for that type of thing. You know, she didn't do too much during that time. She just stood around with the kunai in case anybody, weak pulled up. As Sasuke and Naruto were fighting against Haku, and then Kakashi was fighting against Zabuza. He was like, Sakura, you protect the shipbuilder. And she was like, okay, I'll stand there. And then she got sad because Sasuke had, seemingly died because he had these Zen bones sticking out of his body and he was bleeding out everywhere. She was all scared that he was dead, but, he was all right. And then, they ended up, Haku and Zabuza ended up dying. And, well, they killed Gato, or Zabuza killed Gato. And then after that happened, she, um, God damn. She went and she qualified for the tuning exams. They were cool because Takashi was like, my students are ready for it. All of them are ready for it. I've seen them at the land of waves, and they did a job that was, and that's the thing about them. They had took on a mission that was actually higher ranked than the other teams. You know, it was more difficult than they expected it would to be because Zabuza was involved, and like they didn't know that. But then it got to the shooting exams, right? And she's, in the tuning exams. She knows she's smart enough to like take a test and shit. So she was like, okay. But then she was worried about Naruto. She was like, oh my god, Naruto's not gonna, figure this shit out. He's kind of an idiot. She's like, Sasuke's, I don't know. He's probably good too. And then they all passed because it was a test to see if they would get caught cheating or not get caught cheating, as ninjas are supposed to like heed calls to the fucking shadows and not get caught, and complete the mission in a effective manner and other things. Not get caught, kill who they gotta kill, take what they gotta take, and get the fuck out. You know, and they ended up passing that test, right? Um, Sakura gets to the forest, right? The forest of death, and she has to basically, after Sasuke fights Orochimaru, and well, Naruto did too, but they both got beat. Naruto got his Nine Tails power sealed away. The seal was tightened on him because Orochimaru sensed it and was like, "Oh shit, I don't want to fight with this boy out here while I'm trying to like take over the village and kill the third Hokage." And then he fought Sasuke for another reason, to see how powerful he was at that point in time and to see test his eyes. And he found that out. And he gave him the curse mark too. And then Sakura had to deal with that. This is when Sakura like realizes like that being a ninja is not about, being the most, beautiful looking, woman or anything like that. It's about, holding down for your fucking team. And she had to like take care of Naruto and Sasuke's, unconscious bodies and shit. Then the sound ninja showed up. And she tried her best. She cut her hair short because she had her hair, pulled. She was like, I don't care how I look anymore. I'm a ninja. I have to, fight, somehow. Rock Lee did come to defend her and other things. She was then, in the tuning exams, the preliminaries, and she fought Ino to a draw. Ino was, always, and it was crazy too because Ino did have a better, jutsu than she does. Sakura didn't really have any real jutsu. She knew how to do kunai and other shit, and she wasn't afraid to also go in and hit, either. Um, but I believe, if I remember correctly, Sakura like, you know, she was able to like will herself back into, take control of her body, you know, and got pushed out of, the mind transfer jutsu. She was like, how couldn't I like, I couldn't take over her body completely. She had a like good inner conscience and shit. She was all right. And then, but they knocked each other out. And then she was just watching Naruto and Sasuke in the finals, and then Gara went crazy, right? And then she was, chasing after Gara because Kakashi said, figure that shit out. This guy is, a problem. He could destroy the village. And she was, following Naruto and Sasuke, or Sasuke really. Um, and then she got caught. So, even Sasuke couldn't stop Gara at that point, and then Naruto defeated Gara, and then she was just there. And then when other things came, she didn't show up again until Tsunade got to the village. When Tsunade got to the village, she was like, she's healing Sasuke and Kakashi Sensei. Now I can learn medical ninjutsu from her and become a more effective ninja for my group. And that's what she tried to do. And she was learning and shit. She had to learn from her and Shizune, both of them. But she was learning from them both. And then Sasuke left the village, and she was heartbroken. She was like, "Oh my God, da, 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 da. you know, I can leave with you, or I'll do anything to stay by you." And Sasuke was like, "Nope, you have to stay here, and you shouldn't talk too much either, because like that's not what I'm doing anymore." It was good being by your side and shit, but I have better things to do. I have to, do what I set out to do. She was like, heartbroken. And then the next day she was like, "Oh my God, Naruto, can you save Sasuke?" And or Naruto made a promise to her, and he did hold that. And that's the thing, bitches gonna say other shit. But Naruto did hold up that promise and shit. He was like, "I'll definitely, I'll get Sasuke back," and he was able to do that. It took a long time though, not that long though. It took about 4 years, but he was able to do it. Um, but she wasn't on the retrieval team. She was too like distraught and other shit, and she wasn't powerful either. But the 2 year time skip happened, right? And she becomes stronger, and she does like literally become stronger, like physically strong. Like she's able to like fuck and basically create earthquakes kind of with her hands. Not really, but she was gonna like really take Kakashi's head off. He couldn't like basically he couldn't block her attacks like he used to, because she learned from Tsunade. Tsunade has brute strength. She can crush rocks with her hands and shit like that. Boulders and other things. Kakashi was like, damn, this girl is not like a little girl no more like that. I have to actually like dodge her attacks and shit. I can't just ha- 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 you know I have to actually bob and weave and shit. And and then she was also smart enough to like not get caught in genjutsu like she did when she was a child. She saw the illusion of Sasuke, asking for help, and she was like, okay, this is like some games being played. And then she like was able to help Naruto collect the bells and then show that they had improved in these 2 years, and that Kakashi is like more like, he ain't like, he doesn't need to hold their hand as much, and they can hold their own in a battle if they have to go on a mission. And they had to go on a mission to save Gaara, so they went to save Gaara. And this is where Sakura gets her true feats and stuff. Um, she meets Tsunade, or not Tsunade, my bad, Chio. And then when they get to the Akatsuki hideout, because she had to, and she also had to save Naruto from a Genjutsu too, from Itachi's 30% clone, and that happened. But she had to fight against Sasori, which was Chio's grandson, and he's a Nakatsuki member, Sasori of the Red Sand. He was known for killing people and turning their bodies into corpses. And this guy had poison techniques just like his grandma and shit. So like he was like kind of watching them like do their puppet show and shit. She was like, damn, I can't even get in here to like fucking touch him because this nigga has poison that could fuck me up. And she was like, well, there's, a little bit of antidote, but, you should stay the fuck away from it. And he had extra poison gas and shit. When he like ran out of the gas and shit, Sasori tried to pull her in on some, to poison her and get her fucking lungs, toxified. She was like, she got away from that. She destroyed the third Kazakage puppet too, with her bare hands and shit, And that's the third Kazakage. He's the strongest Kazakage in the Sand's history, you know. And then she had to, destroy a whole bunch of other puppets that he had made that were like mediocre, but like uh, he had like 1,000 of them. And then, she was, playing games basically, destroying these puppets. She was able to like make his heart pop out of his chest, but then she like hid. She gave Chio enough time to grab her puppets and stab Sasori in the chest where his heart was. The only part of him that was still human. And then he died. Um, she played a big role in that fight. Without her, Chio would have died. Sasori would have won that fight. Without her, because she destroyed those puppets. She was making a way for Chio to get in there and deliver the blow that they needed to. They helped each other out. And that was like probably the greatest fight she was in the whole series. And she helped defeat an Akatsuki member. Um, and then after that happened, she was on the Tenchi Bridge mission because she learned in that fight that Sasori was gonna meet Kabuto at the bridge. Kabuto showed up at the bridge, and they were there with it was Sai because he was a new member of Team 7. And also Yamato was there to replace Kakashi because Kakashi had got sick. And then they were there, and Naruto turned into the Four Tails form, and they saw what that did and what that meant. Naruto basically was no more in the Nine Tails to control them, like completely, kind of. But then Yamato had the wood style and the suppression techniques of Hashirama Senju, so he was able to 10th Edict of Enlightenment. He was able to, he calls to that and, keep Naruto, good. But he was able to, he did hurt Sakura. Not trying to, but he was like going wild and shit as a Nine-Tails. And he did that. Then she was like, all right, whatever, we have to find Sasuke. We can find Sasuke and bring him back to the village. They found Kabuto. He was playing games, and then she was running through the hallways and shit. And when she saw Sasuke, she just froze. She was like, oh, he's there. But like, she also like she froze for two reasons. I'll tell you why she froze. Because that's the guy she loves and shit, and she likes to look at him. But not just that, she found out that he was like actually more powerful, and she probably did think that, and Naruto knew too, that Sasuke was more powerful than both of them, and that they could die and shit if they play games too much. But they left that hideout, Orochimaru and Sasuke, and then they left too. Then she was there for the attack. when they had to get revenge for Asuna's death. Team 8, I believe, or Team 10. God damn, I don't remember. Shikamaru and Choji and Ino, and she was there for that. And she came as backup though, and she was like, "Where's Shikamaru?" She went to find Shikamaru. And, you know, she was just there. If she needed to like come out and pop out and fight, she could. Then after that, she was a part of the retrieval team to find Itachi Sasuke. They knew that because they heard that Sasuke had killed Orochimaru, and they were like, we could probably get him back to the village because he's after Itachi. So we'll find Itachi, and then we'll, find Sasuke as well. And that was the plan. They had a whole like everybody was like finding him, but then they didn't know that Sasuke had Karin and everybody else on his team, so that they couldn't find him. They could lead him astray and other shit. She wasn't able to find Sasuke. She was upset again. Sakura. She keeps getting upset about Sasuke not being found and shit, not coming back to the village. But she still, stays on her business and shit. She's a healing ninja and also, good at physical combat. Not as good as Tsunade, but, nearing there. But she um gets to after that, because this is Sakura Haruno. This is that girl, but she she's over there, she was damn, I'm trying to remember what she did. It was during Pain's invasion. She was also like relegated to nothing. She couldn't do anything. She was like on the like she was gonna go help fight, but then there's all these ninjas that were going down. She was like needed as a medical ninja at that point. And she was like, there's so many like bodies out here and shit. There's so many ninjas going down. And she was like, Naruto! And that's what the scene that, everybody knows about, where Naruto showed up in Sage Mode with all the toads from Mount Miyamoku and he was holding down. It just so happened that he showed up when she said that. It was a nice scene. People remember that one if they're Naruto fans. But, um, and she was just there and she was healing people during that time. That's all she was doing. And then during the Five Kage Summit, Naruto and Sakura learned that Sasuke is now a worldwide criminal because he did calls to fucking around trying to catch the Eight Tails, which he couldn't catch, but they believed that he did and other things, and he attacked the Lightning Village, so he was a worldwide criminal at that point. And they're like, damn, you don't have to kill Sasuke. And then Sakura was trying to lie to Naruto and say, I'm not in love with Sasuke anymore. He doesn't like he calls to me. You have always been there, Naruto. And Naruto is like, that's bullshit, girl. You like that guy too much. You would never like me before him. Don't even try to act like you like me more than him. That's weak. You don't do shit like that. Don't do shit like that to me. And he told her like that. And had her, walk away and shit. But she was trying to, save Sasuke still. And she was like, Sasuke, I'll come here to kill you myself if I have to. Why are you still doing shit like this? And she confronted him after he killed Danzo. And, she didn't quite understand that Sasuke was still off his rocker. He was like, I'll kill the leaf and I'll kill you too. If you want to prove your allegiance to me, you have to kill Karin right in front of me. And she's my healer, so you have to kill her to prove that you're loyal to me. And she was like, not gonna do it. There was a part of her that wanted to, but she was like, nope. And then Sasuke was gonna go kill her, and then Kakashi showed up like, damn, you would kill your own fucking, that girl and stuff. And he was like, yeah, man, she's, da 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 da. And then they had their fucking time together, and then Naruto showed up, and then they like went different ways. Sakura was then, on the medical team in the war. She was healing, people. She was protecting the medical ninjas as well. She wasn't just a medical ninja that just healed strictly. When she found out that they were white Zetsus in there, she popped off and started throwing haymakers on niggas and shit. She started breaking these Zetsu apart. You know, but she showed up with the rest of the Shinobi Alliance that didn't die. During the Madara attack and other shit. When Obito and Madara finally united again, and she was there, and then eventually Sasuke and the Hokage showed up, and then the Team Seven was assembled again. You know, she summoned Katsuyu because Tsunade was still like fucked up. Orochimaru had to go save her, but she had 100 healings at that point. She had that type of healing powers at that point, and she also knew how to send Katsuyu's to other people to keep them healed, and that's what she was doing and shit. She kept people around and other things. She couldn't keep Neji around, unfortunately. Nobody know why he died and shit, but he died. And then she got some of Kurama's chakra, and she was running around trying to fight the Ten Tails. Then certain fights happened and shit, and Madara became the Ten Tails in Cherokee. And then after that happened, she was one of the people that was, saved by Sasuke. Sasuke put a Susanoo cloak around to keep, them from seeing the infinite Tsukuyomi. Now that'd be Kakashi, Sakura, Naruto, and Obito was there too. And she was there, and she was actually key in this part too. And other people might not have any calls to it, but like Kaguya, when they were fighting against Kaguya in the final battle, she did like need to be there, because Kaguya she got hit by the Kamui shurikens, right, and her arms were getting like sucked away. Naruto and Sasuke were coming in from the left and right to like use the moon and sun seals, right? But up above, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can go up and get away from like both of all their attacks. I won't get sealed away, and I won't go into the Kamui dimension." But then Sakura was up above her head and smashed her head, boom, punched her. Then they were able to like come together and seal her away. So she was a key piece in sealing away Kaguya too. I don't know if people remember that, but she was there for that part. And that was the only like parts that she he calls her, she's a support ninja, she's a healer. And then she does use physical attacks are enhanced from her chakra and other things. But in Boruto, she is a mother to Sarada and other things. She fought against some shinobis there too, but she's still just side character. Out of all the females though, from like all these groups of the Konoha 12, let me say this about Sakura: she's better than Ino, better than Tenten. Hinata though, Hinata got her though still, I think. It's because of the Byakugan. And she could hit, her chakra pool points and like keep her, at bay. You know, it wouldn't be an easy fight either way, but Sakura is one of the better, females in the village. At the end of it all, she had a daughter with Sasuke, so she did get what she wanted, and Naruto did do what he promised her, as a friend and shit. He was like, "Bitch, I'll find that guy, I'll get him right again." And she was like, and that's what he did. And then she was like, happy, and then she was like really cool, and they protect each other in Boruto and other things because they have a great relationship and shit. But I don't watch Boruto like that, so that's what other anime heads do. Follow them and shit for the Boruto content. I'll talk about Boruto one day. But um, that's the life of Sakura Haruno. As I know it, and then Boruto is another thing, right? Is she gonna die? Is she gonna like disappear? I don't know. But Sakura is, a great support character, and she, cared about her team a lot. Like everybody, she cared about, all of them. When they went to go fight at the end of the series, she was like, "Oh my God, they don't even need to do that shit. Like, why are they even doing that? They sealed away Kaguya and shit to like prevent the world from ending. And why are they gonna do that? She's just like there, and then when she found him, she was like, "You dumbasses, you left." You lost your arms and shit because you wanted to fight like that. But yeah, that's Sakura for you. That's the story of Sakura Haruno. You know, pink hair, female in anime. Everybody knows that Sakura. I don't know who else you would think of. You would think of her first. That's all I'm saying. And she's at Konoichi at that shit. So stay cool, Corner.